God opens the door before us, it's our duty and privilege as Christians to walk through it. As part of His church, we rejoice at doors opening in the country of Nepal. God's open doors. Nepal is a landlocked country in South Asia, bounded by China on the north and India on the west, east, and south. Visitors to Nepal are amazed at the crowds in the streets, not to mention other creatures they may encounter. Cows, goats, and even an occasional elephant or monkey. With a population of 19 million people in a country measuring about 500 miles long and 100 miles wide, it's one of the world's most densely populated countries. The Himalayas are beautiful. In contrast to the poverty one finds. Average earnings are around $170 per year. Farming provides the livelihood for 90% of Nepalis. Nepal is officially a Hindu country with a significant Buddhist population. Only 0.5% claim to be Christians. The spiritual need is great. For 150 years, Nepal's borders were closed to foreigners. Through a shift in power from the Prime Minister to the King of Nepal, the door was opened for missionaries to enter. In 1954, the United Mission to Nepal was formed. Missionaries representing 39 different organizations, including the Wesleyan Church, come from 18 countries to work cooperatively in various health, education, rural, and industrial development projects. Over the years, the government has had restrictions on evangelistic activities. In spite of persecution, a church developed. God was faithful as Nepalis concerned about their fellow countrymen at great risk shared their faith in Christ. In 1990, a change to a more democratic form of government brought a new dimension to the work. Although the situation is still uncertain, Christians are distributing literature and setting ambitious goals for church growth, walking through the open doors before them. For me, it seemed God always had an open door before me. I sensed from an early age that God was going to call me to missionary service, but not until I was in my late 20s did I do anything about it. I pictured myself living in a mud hut and encountering all sorts of awful creatures in the jungle. When I was about 26, I made a short visit to Haiti. God used that experience to open my eyes to what a missionary's life is really like. It wasn't nearly as bad as I feared. The missionaries were not growing old before their time. They were enthusiastic, obviously filled with love for God and the Haitians. I returned to Canada ready to retrain if necessary in order to be able to serve on a mission field. During the next couple of years, the Lord confirmed His call on my life, and in 1986 I applied to Wesleyan World Missions. I didn't retrain, but during that waiting time my relationship with the Lord deepened. In 1987, the Lord began to open the door to Nepal for me. My knowledge of Nepal was limited to Mount Everest and the oppression of Christians. I remember praying for Wesleyan missionary Margaret Wright and feeling how difficult it must be for her there alone as a missionary. I wrestled with doubts about whether I could work in such an oppressed country. The Lord confirmed that this was His will through His Word. When I arrived in Nepal in 1988, I found myself surrounded by fellow missionaries from many denominations and countries who loved Jesus and had a desire to serve Him. After a 5-month language and orientation program, I moved to the remote village of Ampipal. There I began my work as business manager of Gorka Project. I am one of 18 missionaries working in the project's 3 components: a 50-bed hospital, a community health program, and a tuberculosis control support program. Most patients come to the hospital from Gorka or other neighboring districts, walking or being carried along the rough and often steep paths. The hospital annually sees 35,000 outpatients, admits over 2,000 inpatients, and performs about 1,400 operations. The community health program includes as one of its goals educating people in disease prevention. A development this past year was the expansion of our informal education program. People from many communities have asked that literacy classes be started in their villages. One member of my staff is helping his children with their homework and his wife with her reading after work. It's gratifying to see the excitement in the communities. Along with helping to meet the physical and educational needs of people, it's also been a means of outreach, as some people have requested Christian literature. A common problem in Nepal is that people use scarce funds going to the local witch doctor or jankri to heal them. Many times when it is too late, they come to the hospital. God has given us an open door of ministry among inpatients at the hospital, providing counseling, spiritual help for them and their families. Chetnath is a paraplegic injured in an accident 3 years ago. He has been helped spiritually by various people, and now he has a ministry of his own helping to distribute books, literature, and tapes to patients. He is teaching the housekeeping staff to read. God opened a door of service to him. New doors are opening. United Mission to Nepal has recently established a position to work hand in hand with the Nepali Church. As it moves into new areas of ministry, with goals to establish schools, orphanages, and even hospitals, UMN personnel are offering assistance and advice. We rejoiced not long ago when we heard of a remote village in Gorka district where there are 60 new believers. They sent a representative to our church in Ampipal to collect literature for discipling new Christians. An advisory group on Nepali women has been established to raise the status of women in the country. Its activities include teaching women to read and introduction of income generation programs to women's groups. These groups and programs are open doors of opportunity to share God's love and concern. You can be involved in meeting the needs of people in Nepal. Pray that church leaders will continue to have a singleness of purpose and boldness to proclaim the message of new life in Christ. Pray for God's person to fill each position within the mission. We need trained, committed Christians to fill senior positions to have a spiritual impact for Christ. The need for people to disciple believers and train pastors is great. Pray that one day the door will be open for Wesleyan missionaries to be directly involved in theological education. It can happen as you pray. I sense God has kept the door open to my service in Nepal. I'm going back to assist in the project's health work and in the work of the church. Join me. Continue to support Wesleyan World Missions through your giving. Come join us. You can be involved in the work in Nepal, possibly as a short-termer. You can come for a short visit, just to be an encouragement or to offer technical advice. That's often welcome. The challenge for each of us is to walk through open doors as God opens them before us.